Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our Legal Brand Builder. My name is Jay Fenster. I'm the Corporate Marketing Manager at OUTFRONT, and I'll be moderating today's event. Here, we'll share the secrets of the most successful law firms and attorneys. You'll learn how they utilize out-of-home advertising to drive name awareness, trust, and phone calls from prospective clients. We've assembled an all-star panel for today's discussion. OUTFRONT Regional Marketing Director Chris Mallen will address how and why out-of-home works for legal businesses, and Studios Art Director Daniel Alvarado will share inspiring examples of the category's best ad creative. Then we'll conduct an advertiser roundtable with two of our showcase clients. Joining us today are Nate Faber, partner at Aeton Law, and Tricia Barr, Media Director at Morgan & Morgan. I want to thank each of them for taking the time to share their expertise with all of you, and I want to thank all of you as well. If you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to ask using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We will answer as many as we have time for at the conclusion of our advertiser roundtable. And with that, I will hand it off to Chris.
Thank you, Jay. Hi, everyone. As Jay mentioned, my name is Chris Mallen, and I'm the Regional Marketing Director in the South region. Today, we're going to go over 5 main areas during our discussion and wrap it up with an audience Q&A for our panel. First, we'll explore consumer behavior and what its evolution means for brands like yours. Next, we'll talk about how and why out-of-home drives results for the legal industry. After that, one of our favorite parts of the presentation, we'll showcase some of the most effective and impactful creative examples from brands in the legal industry. Then we will roll right into a roundtable discussion with our group of panelists and their experiences with advertising through out-of-home. To wrap this up, as I mentioned, we'll close it out with questions from the audience. And as Jay mentioned, as we go along, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. All right, let's kick it off with how you can use out-of-home advertising to target your desired audiences. Coming out of this crazy time in all of our lives with a global pandemic, a lot has changed. And during this period, consumers' demand for legal counsel has increased. People are looking for good legal counsel, someone that is going to have their back and keep their personal data secure while doing it. All the while, research is showing that 84% of Americans will commute to work at least a couple of days a week this summer. This means out-of-home is all the more viable for your brand to connect with consumers. And this is important, as out-of-home is part of the customer journey to and from work, the gym, grocery store, pick up what you need for the weekend's barbecue. Total miles driven by Americans are up 8% year over year to a record high. And over 80% of consumers say they are noticing out-of-home on highways and local roads. And now we're shifting our focus to industry trends and insights. Taking a look at the macro trends shaping this industry right now, revenue growth surged even higher than pre-pandemic numbers as big law firms saw record demand and in turn significant revenue growth. But many firms were taxed with a large amount of billable hours and not enough lawyers to handle their workloads. Some of the key insights here show the demand for lawyers at large firms has increased, a 6.6% increase in demand over pre-pandemic numbers for legal counsel, which is fantastic, and an astounding 14.7% growth in large firm revenue over that period. Additionally, 75% of large firms anticipate equity partnership to expand this year. So what are some of the ways that legal has stood out? Well, creative is key, and Daniel will touch on more about that in a bit. And 3D embellishments like these letters on this billboard that you're seeing here in the middle that really literally pop off the ad are one way you can stand out. And on the right, you'll see what is called a gateway board. And it really sets your advertising as a cornerstone of the highway. So let's move into how and why out-of-home gets results. Our world has changed. So while the lines between our digital, virtual, and physical lives continue to blur, we've continued to see digital burnout and fatigue rise. The majority, 63% of us, are feeling the effects of digital burnout. And even more of us, 75%, are skipping ads, making it harder for advertisers to break through digitally. On top of that, over a third of consumers are actively trying to decrease their screen time. It's becoming clear that audiences are ready to spend less time in front of screens and more time engaging in real experiences outside of the home. Out of home is seeing heightened awareness, a rise in trust, and increased ability to drive action. 70% of consumers have an increased awareness and appreciation for out of home versus pre-pandemic. 58% of consumers consider out of home to be the most trustworthy medium, and 66% took some kind of form of action on their mobile phones after seeing an out of home ad. So we are the most visible media platform in the US, reaching 75% of the population weekly, with a powerful platform of 651,000 plus assets across the country. Out of home is woven into the fabric of our community, our culture. It's always on and has the power to steer public discourse with immense cultural impact. Our mission is to deliver impactful and engaging interactions with audiences as they live their lives. This is achieved through what we call TLC, utilizing sophisticated technology to increase consumer engagement, to target audiences where they are, have been, and will be, and using big, bold, and beautiful creative to drive home your message. I'll now pass it over to Daniel to walk us through examples of best-in-class industry creative. Daniel?
Thanks, Chris. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Daniel Alvarado, art director here at OUTFRONT Studios. I'm excited to showcase to you some creatives that just hit different. So yes, you heard me right. We are OUTFRONT Studios, or just known as studios, where our focus is to elevate brands in the ways they're connecting with their audiences. We are an award-winning in-house agency, the team of over 50 creatives nationwide. And our goal is to help our clients with everything from consulting, ideation, to execution. Our clients know their business, and we know out of home. So to create an impactful and successful campaign, our job is to marry the two. I now will pronounce you a successful campaign. So why out of home? Now, this is the part where I'm sure you're waiting for me to get into a nice long spiel about why out of home is the best. Well, I won't, so don't worry. I'm not going to tell you about how out of home evokes strong emotional connections with its audiences like no other medium. And I wouldn't want to get into how out of home continues to be the only unskippable media, always a part of audience's environment, or how from billboards, wallscapes, massive digital screens, transit, these canvases can create experiences like excitement, intrigue, and shock. So dodge all that. But something that absolutely makes sense is 100% boring ads don't matter. And the source, well, that doesn't really matter either, because it's true. So when it comes to advertising for legal, we're always thinking of new ways to keep things interesting. But don't worry, this is just a joke image. But I mean, they're not wrong, and it did get a lot of good viral attention. So when we talk about keeping things new and interesting, what we really mean is just be different, stand out in the crowd, or a sea really of law firms. The Derry Law here is a good example of doing just that, where his focus was on criminal defense, with clients who got caught with guns and dope, but wanted to expand that audience reach. So here at Studios, we came up with a really simple idea of just blurring out dope. Now audiences were able to plug in their own words and interact with the ad itself. Sometimes the greatest impact can stem from the simplest ideas. Next, here are a few other examples of law firms who fully committed to who their audience was and what area of law they were known for. Steel Horse Law on the top here was focused on motorcycle accidents. So why not make it feel like a Harley Davidson ad, leather accents and all? Fair and Fair's focus was on people who had gotten into accidents with big rigs and what a traumatizing experience that could be. So creative was made to mimic that of a horror movie, which definitely grabs attention and surprises audiences at a first glance. And last but not least, Prior Law, whose focus was on business litigation. And by making their creative look like a censored classified document, I mean, who wouldn't want to go over there for a closer look? Nothing fancy, just simple and effective. Now, when your ad looks like this, it's no wonder why you have to beg your audience for their trust. And I bet the only things his dogs trust him to do is feed him on time, maybe. So instead, why not look the part through your branding and your creative? Present yourself and your group as a trustworthy, caring, and hardworking firm that you guys already know you are. So in our next case study here, this client had come to studios wanting us to replicate this art. But through our discovery and consultative process, we found out that Reginald was open to seeing a lot more to what studios could offer. I mean, of course, all elements here still being very easily legible and memorable, but we wanted to guarantee audiences would remember him. Continuing on with his brand as the super lawyer, we were able to push the bounds of what he thought was possible. And presenting him in this light makes him look unstoppable. And that's exactly the type of feeling you want when looking for a lawyer to represent you. Developing his brand further with us has now made him his own symbol of being trustworthy, relentless, and righteous. And in following this super theme, Los Justicieros is another great example of creative continuing to just be different. Using an illustrative style to create a unique superhero mascot has now given them a branding element different from any other firm. Another strong tool your firm can use to separate you from that crowd is presenting your brand's personality and character. Choosing that conversational tone over a transactional one makes your team sound more relatable and genuine. Sometimes a brand's voice can be stronger than an image. And finally, Parnia Law, another great example here of utilizing brand development with a variety of different mediums to expand his reach. By recreating his look using a reference from pop culture, he discovered a new way of connecting with his audiences. And if you live in the West LA area, it's hard not to see any of these around. So my verdict, why not out of home? And I rest my case. Thank you all again. I'm going to pass it back to you, Jay, so we can introduce today's speakers. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Chris. Now we want to jump into our advertiser roundtable. So here we have with us Nate Baber and Tricia Barr. So Nate, we are going to start with you. You chose to collaborate with studios for your ad creative. Tell us why you did and how that collaboration played out.
Well, I chose to collaborate with studios, and I'm glad that I did for the same reason our clients come to us, which is we're professionals and they're looking for professional advice in our area of expertise. And I know nothing about creativity. I'm not creative unless it's in front of a jury. I think I am, at least. And so I wanted the professionals to help me figure out how to convey a message to those who are going to see these billboards in an effective way. So that's immediately why I reached out to them instead of trying to come up with something on our own. And obviously it's proven to be effective for us. And the collaboration played out. I just simply had a very nascent idea of what I wanted our new marketing campaign to look like. We had started focusing on personal injury as a result of some good case results that we had and some personal experience that I had in getting those results. And so we saw that an opportunity in our market to advertise to a very specific group of potentially injured clients. And so I kind of conveyed that message to them and what I wanted to look like, the theme and the coloring, because it's consistent with what we already had. And they really took it from there. So I think it played out well. I mean, the advertising, the billboard that you see there in front of you, and what I like about the creative team is that's changed since we've started. And when we have either a new focus or a new idea, they're very capable, I found, to be flexible in how we present our image in case it changes or in case we want to do something a little bit different.
Okay. Tricia, out of home has been a crucial part of Morgan & Morgan's strategy as the firm establishes its presence in new markets. Tell us how you laid that groundwork in terms of strategy, tactics, locations.
It varies by market, obviously, and what you're looking at right now is something very unique to Morgan & Morgan, and that is a partnership with the Boston Red Sox. So when we started discussions with them, who wouldn't want to be partnering with this iconic brand? And we found that having this connection in Boston with a beloved and iconic, organization really added additional nod of approval for what we were doing in terms of our programs and our desire to help people and help families. So in this particular market, thanks to OUTFRONT, and I have to give a shout out to Howard Marcus and Brian Mulk, both from OUTFRONT, helped us pull together the Kenmore Station domination. It was probably 200 different assets in this particular station. We were able to get all kinds of creative assets prepared in every different category, really, from fun to serious to, as you see here, some opportunities to have social media interaction. And it provided a great lift for social media and also for people in Boston recognizing our commitment to the community. So it was a great program. We did spectacular bulletins right at Fenway. We're doing super ultra kings buses. We added urban panels, and I think there's 200 assets in the Kenmore Station. So it was a very, very extensive program, and it's operating right now, and we're getting great feedback from it.
Nate, your law firm serves a very specific niche. How were you able to communicate that message through your creative studio?
Well, the one that you see here, we determined that there was kind of a void in our market for unpaid wage claims, which is something we've been successful at. And so we didn't have to do too much to convey that we might be the go-to place for unpaid wage claims. And we just use simple, very simple words: unpaid wage and overtime. Get paid what you're worth is something that we'd come up with. And so we really just put it right in front of the client. When it comes to our personal injury advertising, which is what most of our advertising is, in Connecticut, like in nearly every state, there is a lot of personal injury advertising. And in our state, for example, there's some attorneys that advertise that they win fast or win quickly, and they're more of a high volume personal injury shop that does everything from slip and falls to more serious cases. I don't have that type of staff. And so what we attempt to attract are very specific cases that include serious injuries, medical malpractice, and wrongful death. To try to find a niche within that personal injury market that we can attract more clients to. And so we use serious probably too much, but we put that right in front of clients, and we say we want to be your go-to law firm for serious injuries, so that if a mom's making a decision about which lawyer to call if her kid or her husband's been injured or seriously injured, which is essentially our market, then we want her to make a decision between a firm that puts out in front that they do serious injuries or another firm that might say that they win fast. So we've attempted to convey that in our advertising. I think it's worked.
Right. Well, Tricia, you have run some campaigns that are definitely not what you would expect from a law firm. Tell us about some of those and the thinking behind it.
This was probably the highlight of this year. We had a partnership, and currently do have a partnership with the University of Kentucky. And we also had signed quite a few of their basketball players to our NIL sponsorship and representation. So Howard Marcus up in New York was giving us a tour of some of the OUTFRONT media assets in Times Square. And this number 2 Times Square was just about to be activated. It was still dark, but it just so happened to coincide with the University of Kentucky playing Duke University at Madison Square Gardens. So we pulled together our videographers, our design team, and Howard got everybody on the ground in New York prepared to pull this together as a surprise activation for the University of Kentucky basketball team. So right before their practice round came in, the university brought them over to Times Square. OUTFRONT Media lit the screen, and they were just overwhelmed by the surprise of it all and seeing their images at Times Square in New York City. And what was really amazing was each of these athletes, I think there were 8 or 9 images up there, had about 50,000+ followers on social. And that multiplier effect was incredible for Morgan and Morgan, with just the, earned media from all of their own posts. Not only that, but our own Morgan and Morgan exposure was just wonderful. And after the team played, we kept the unit activated for the rest of the period, and we had so much opportunity with the moving video to add information about our firm, our size, the fact that we do all of these cases, we litigate for free. We do not charge a fee unless we win. And it was just a very unique opportunity to get 8 million impressions every week on this coverage. And it was phenomenal. And so that's what we love about out of home is we can tell our story, we can show our partnerships, we can show our commitment to all the regions that we are in throughout the United States. And it's impactful, both from a direct impact on people on the ground to people on social media and the internet. So this was a tremendous campaign.
Okay. Well, Nate, you used a digital rotary program to expand your presence. Tell us how you used that strategy to maximize your reach.
Well, I'm not ashamed to say that I don't quite have the budget that Morgan and Morgan does. Like I said, we were at the beginning of a marketing campaign. And so in order to maximize the amount of money that we do spend on billboards, the digital rotary was important for us because it allows us not to be stagnant in one place for the extended campaign. We can reach multiple different audiences through different parts of the roadway by getting on different billboards in different locations at any given time. And it's proved effective. I mean, it gives the impression that we have a bigger budget than we do, because you might see our billboard in Hartford and then you might see it in New Haven, and then you don't know the difference. It looks like we're in all those places at the same time. And given the amount of time that it stays up and the number of times it rotates, it really does give the impression that we have a much larger campaign than we do.
Tricia, you are very focused on analytics and on measuring your return on ad spending. How do you evaluate the success of your campaigns, and what are some of the reactions that you get?
Well, we have all of the matrix. We've had 34 years of data from all of our call centers. We have call centers worldwide operating 24-hour days, 7 days a week. So I can give you all of that detail, but I have a much more interesting story. Our founder, John Morgan, was invited up to the White House for a party for Michelle Obama's birthday. And of course, it was a situation where, it was who's who of America at this party. And it was just an amazing opportunity for him and his family to attend. And he was walking over to the refreshment area and saw Paul McCartney, who's, a Beatle, and coming from the era of remembering how important the Beatles were in our country and in the youth. John said, I really was in my mind thinking, what do I say? What do you say when you're introducing yourself to someone like Paul McCartney? And he said, before I could even get a word out, Paul McCartney said, I recognize you. I've seen you on billboards in Orlando, Florida. You're a lawyer, right? And John's, he was just shocked that A, that he recognized him, and B, that he had been in Orlando, where we probably have the highest billboard coverage of anywhere in the country. And Paul McCartney recognized him. So we use that as our litmus test for, yes, these work. And even people driving into the city and visiting for a short period of time have recognized the power of out of home. So we just love that story and are so thankful that he mentioned that to John.
Nate, you mentioned that your client intake process is a critical part of how you measure the impact of your campaigns. Why is that?
Well, we advertise across a few different mediums. We do billboards, we have TV commercials, we do a lot of social media, which does very well. And so unless your staff is on the same page and your intake coordinator is on the same page in asking where that client first saw you or first got the impression of you or your number or your website, then it's going to be impossible to tell where your money should be spent. Is that person coming from a TV commercial? Or are they coming from social media, word of mouth? And so our intake process includes the very simple question, where did you first hear about us? And if the person says, well, I Googled you, well, did you Google us because you saw our name on a billboard and couldn't remember the number, but it has a funny name that has an A, an E, and a T in it? Or you probably got my name wrong and called me Barber instead of Baber, but did you first see that on a website? And so without that knowledge, then it's really hard to measure the impact of any one campaign, including the campaign that we have with OUTFRONT and the campaign that we have across other mediums.
And Tricia, question for you. What is the best advice that you have for a law firm that wants to grow without it?
Grow their business with out of home. We have a mantra here, go big or go home, but I know that's not for everybody. I think you basically have to do exactly as Nate explained, have a mix. And understand which mix is best for you. We have always had a large presence in broadcast as well as out of home. Now even digital is becoming a big factor, and radio. And you have to listen to your clients as they do call in and explain. That's the first question we ask is, how did you hear about us? Oftentimes it's television, because we know when people are injured, they are home watching TV. But many, many, many times, because we utilize out of home with such an emotional push behind it, people say, I saw your billboard and I loved, what you were saying, or I didn't realize that you work for free until you take us to court. And, there's all of this information that we provide. So I would say, understand your client and try to have a budget and be very flexible, because the out-of-home companies can offer you many different types of programs. Early on, when we were first getting started, we did a lot of preemptible billboards because the rate was more affordable. And we still to this day, in some of our markets, when there's not enough inventory in the areas that we want to be in, we'll go into preemptible programs. So you really need to look at each of your markets everywhere you go, everywhere you're serving, and try to direct your advertising to the attributes of your clients, and stick with it. I think longer is better.
Right. Now I have a lightning round question for the both of you. And Nate, we're going to start with you. You've both seen the difference that it makes when out of home is added to the media mix, and I'd like you to each speak to the impact.
Well, I'll share a story as well. The second day, literally, that we had our wage and hour billboard up, I got a phone call from a trucker who was driving, well, he was in a work van, who was driving on the highway in our state on 91, who saw my wage and hour billboard and literally called us from the van that he was in on a wage and hour claim. And it's the biggest case that I have in the entire office. It's a class action wage and hour claim. So we measured the impact immediately. And from there, we knew that we had the potential to reach a lot of eyeballs in a very budget friendly and sophisticated way. And second, on a personal injury case, it came in about a month and a half ago. It's kind of a unique case, but essentially it's a medical malpractice case. The client called us because they saw multiple billboards and determined that they liked the feel of our billboard in the sense that we were looking for serious injury cases. And it played out in the way that we anticipated. Whether it turns out to be a client that pays off, I'm not sure, but it gave us the opportunity to have the first crack at signing up that client, which is always obviously what we want. Our opinion is if we can get the phone call, then I can close the client. And so all I need is phone calls and people visiting the website, and that helps us dramatically.
Great. Tricia, same question for you.
Oh, for a very long time, we used a toll-free number, 800 Morgan Law. And as the internet and technology continue to improve and more people were using cell phones, the Morgan family really wanted to invest in technology to make it easier for people to reach us directly from their cell phones. So it took several years of working through the cell phone companies and all the different layers there, but we acquired dial pound law. So on your cell phone, if you hit hashtag 529, that goes directly to any of our call centers at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it was a big event, which there was a lot of stress around not knowing, dropping the 800 Morgan law and then advertising dial pound law, if it would be effective. So we did it across the nation, consistently with all of our advertising. And primarily, I would say the billboards displayed the dial pound law most prominently, and probably I would say the longest. And it was effective immediately. So we could track right away that people were no longer dialing the 800 number, but were actually hitting the dial pound law. So there was one instance. And of course, each year we have a theme for our company that, from feedback that we receive from our call center, some of the questions we receive and some of the issues that we're dealing with some of our clients, we realized that so many people were afraid to hire a lawyer because they didn't think they could afford it. So this year's free campaign has just really moved the needle in terms of people feeling more comfortable to call us, knowing that when they called us, they weren't going to have to write a check. So that's wonderful for us, because we want people to know that we're here for them. We are always going to take their case 24 hours, 7 days a week. And if we're not able to do, take their case, or it's outside of the parameters of our firm, we're going to refer them into someone else or help them find the right assistance that they need so that their injury can be resolved.
Okay, that wraps it up for our advertiser roundtable. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Tricia. At this point, we would like to open the floor up to questions from our audience. So if there's something that you would like to ask our panelists, feel free to use that Q&A box right down at the bottom of the screen. And we do have a couple of questions in already. So first question is for you, Tricia. Love the QR code with a giveaway. What type of engagement did you receive?
I don't know exactly. I believe it allowed people to obtain tickets to a specific games, during the Red Sox season while they're in Boston. But I'm sorry, I don't have that information today. I'm not sure exactly how many people have been awarded it, but I know it's been a lot. I don't have any specific numbers.
Okay. Chris, would you like to speak a little bit about just the power of QR codes and the interactivity that we get with them?
Yeah, so QR codes was something pre-pandemic that everybody just assumed was dead and gone, and we'd never see QR codes again in our lives. And then during the pandemic, as people changed how they live and breathe and do all these different things about how they interact with things in their real world, QR codes came back, and we saw them being used at restaurants for menus. We saw them being used in different places, and for advertising, certainly it allowed for advertisers to have more interactions, to make their advertising interactive, to drive them either to some type of activation or to their website. And it also gave them some more insight into who was seeing their ads. And that's pretty valuable, because one of the complaints that a lot of people have had with old school traditional out-of-home advertising is that it's not interactive enough. Well, with the implementation of technology, as technology has progressed, and QR codes is one thing that has created a new form of being interactive with out-of-home ads, and that's pretty powerful.
Great. Okay, this next question, Daniel, this one is for you. What are some of the best practices for the legal category specifically?
Best practices. Well, kind of like how you guys saw in the presentation, just, figuring out, the character and the personality behind your brand and how to emphasize that and really separate you from the competition. I'd say keep that conversational tone, make it feel like a genuine interaction. I know we say a lot, out of home screams to many, but it whispers to one. And it's very true. It's very true. And so SEO presence is really leading the way, just like, you know, Chris and Tricia were talking about. It's technology that's really kind of leading the way of how audiences interact with our advertisers now. And I mean, if you're like me, I'm on my phone 90% of the time. And if I don't know something, I'm going to use Google as my second brain. So I think that allows you to kind of clear up the canvas a bit, and not, you know, make it feel like you have to clutter it with contact info or anything like that. But yeah, just being different and having your own voice to stand out in that crowd.
All right, Nate, this next question is for you. We use 1-800-CAN'T-WORK for all of our ads, but we have difficulty tracking where clients actually found us. Do you still believe in vanity phone numbers?
I missed the last part of that first sentence. If you could say that again, Jay.
We use 1-800-CAN'T-WORK for all of our ads, but we have difficulty tracking where clients actually found us. Do you still believe in vanity phone numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I do, and we run into similar problems. We have 855 CT legal, and we put those on our billboards and social media. What we've done is we've connected that phone number so that when you call that number, it goes to our regular office line. And then we just ensure that our intake coordinator knows that they have to ask the first question and then any potential follow-up question to determine where they saw that number and how they got it. So we don't really care how they call us. And so the vanity number is good because it's just a very good way to remember what the number is. You know, our other number is just a very standard number. And so 855 CT legal is very easy. So as long as we get the call, then we feel comfortable that it's worked. And then our intake coordinator knows that they should ask where they saw that number. Was it on a billboard or social media, or was it on one of our commercials? So it's not the most effective way to track, but it's the best way to track in our opinion, without having a separate dedicated number that goes to a separate dedicated line and potentially a separate dedicated receptionist. I know Morgan probably has a different setup for that, but that's how we do it.
So this next question, Tricia, is for you, and it's actually a little bit of a related subject. Do you still use the pound law number? And if so, what percentage of calls do you get from that versus the 1-800?
Yes, pound law is very active. I don't know the percentages. I'd have to ask the IT department. But we still use 800 Morgan Law, but we have with so many offices, we have 70 markets now. It depends where you are exactly. So you could actually be anywhere and dial pound law, or you could go to your phone and say, dial 800 Morgan Law, or you could say, Google, call Morgan & Morgan. And all of those numbers are directed to our call center or one of our offices directly. So we have a several layered approach to make sure that people can reach us directly. I would say that dial pound law is widely used because it's easy. But we're in favor of having all contacts available, and so we've never turned off any way for anyone to connect with us. But our call centers are very dialed into, you know, any way that you dial into us. It's directed to an intake specialist so that we can talk to you right away about your injury and help you resolve whatever problem that you're having.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. I think that's about all the questions that we have from our audience today. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to give special thanks to our spotlight clients, Nate and Tricia. And I want to let everybody know that this presentation will be available on the OUTFRONTX Content Hub probably tomorrow. So please visit outfront.com to rewatch this presentation. We will also be emailing it out to all of you who attended and to everybody who registered and was not able to. So thank you on behalf of all of us at OUTFRONT, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.